Hi everybody, I'm going to talk a little bit about cognition and aging, and please read your book. It covers this topic extremely well. It's probably one of the best summarized chapters you're going to find, because it really does talk about it in a very introductory way. There's a video that I included in there. The video is not mandatory. It's really more of auxiliary, and it really talks about how the brain is affected by the aging process, and how is it that we see cognition issues manifest through the brains. It talks about what happens to people when they're getting dementia, what happens to people with Alzheimer's. It talks about who is most likely to get it. It talks about what is it that you can do, and how you should be preparing for aging. So it's at a personal level. You can take it that way, and it's a good information video to kind of provide you with this information at a personal level. And also, if you're interested in ever going into the medical field, and in any capacity with health, in any capacity whatsoever, remember that a lot of the clients that you will be serving are going to be people who are going to be aging. We are all aging, so it is something to think about, and wanting to understand this process of aging and what it means. Even on a personal level, you can start thinking about, what is happening with, those people that you love who are much older, and what is that can be done in order to try and address some of these issues. So this is why this is important, and actually why I kind of get excited about this kind of discussion. So first, let me address that your book, again, does an excellent job. And so this right here comes from Wesson Cole, and it's actually built into another work that I'm using really for this, and I'll show you that in a second. I don't want to reinvent the wheel too much, nor do I want to spend a lot of time lecturing too heavily on this, especially since it is kind of a short week. Not a short week for a week, but the reading's very straightforward. It's a short chapter. So here you have limitation of activities caused by chronic health conditions by age, and it's 2006 to 2007 per 1,000 individuals, and it's just kind of showing you the rate of these individuals over this time period, and it's breaking them down from 65, 74, 75 to 84, and 85 and above. These age categories are very common when people are doing research on older populations, so don't be too surprised not to see this in the future. It's 65 to 74, 75 to 84, 85 and over. We see a lot of changes that occur for people who are within these age categories. Like, there's a lot of events that happen in these people's lives, and this is where, if we think about the life course curve, this is where you start to see the slight decline in that functioning category. And this is another illustration of that, except that it's showing you where do these declines really happen. And you can see, right from the beginning, you can see the arthritis and heart and other circulatory conditions are extremely high. That's also just an American issue, that right around this age and earlier than that, you see high rates of muscular issues, arthritis issues, and obviously heart disease is something that sticks out. Why? A lot of it is the diets that we have. A lot of it is based off of the lifestyles that we live, very sedimentary lifestyle, or a lot of it is because a lot of people actually also do a lot of heavy work, and so heavy lifting, heavy work, all those things take a toll on the body, and so you start seeing, especially among people who are in working class occupations, it's one of those tricky things to pay attention to, the work that people are doing and how it affects how they're going to be able to live in their later lives. So this is those connections that exist. But you can see that from 65 to 74, when you look at diabetes, which is a very common disease, lung disease, which is common, vision issues, hearing problems, and senility or dementia is not as high, right? But then you go to 75 to 84, you start to see a slight increase in those categories, in the last three categories, although the diabetes and lung pretty much stay the same. But see the increase in the arthritis and heart disease, right? You start to see a slight increase. This grows much greater when you get to the 85 and older. And you can see that the rate is 31,000 people 85 and older. 281 had arthritis or other musculatory condition. 204 had heart disease or circulatory conditions, right? Only about 50 had diabetes. You notice, right, that this is not increasing dramatically or as dramatically as the others are, right? Same thing with lung condition. You don't see that much of an increase at this point. So, part of it is because the morbidity of people who suffer from diabetes and lung conditions tend to be much earlier and younger. They tend to die a little bit earlier than. So if you survive at this point, you most likely are less likely to get diabetes or get lung conditions. So those things are things to consider regarding those things. It's just that you have those issues playing place. But see how much higher the vision conditions begin to increase, right? Dramatic increase there. You see it in hearing problems, and you see it in senility and dementia, right? It's increase in these areas. So we understand that there is a health things that kind of increase, and particularly you can see that for our discussion, which is we're dealing with, we just did the health chapters, and we did the obviously how to deal with the medical conditions, and now we're looking at the cognitive side of things. And so this is where you kind of see this significance of this popping up, right? And so this is the Committee on Public Health Dimensions of Cognitive Aging. They did a great job of kind of putting together an entire study of what we know about cognitive aging and what it means, right? And so they put it together for the Institute of Medicine, and this is the source right up here. Please feel free to look it up and grab yourself a copy of it. It's a great resource, especially if you're interested in the cognitive sides of aging process. So again, which is important for anyone dealing with all populations. This is not just like, this is just older people. No. This aging happens for everybody, and so these are important factors that they're finding. So key features that they identified in this regarding cognitive aging, right? It's inherent in humans and animals as they age. So they looked at all the studies that do animal studies and human studies, and they see that cognitive aging is part of the process, right? But of course, across the spectrum of individuals, as they age, regardless of initial cognitive function, meaning it doesn't matter what your function was at one point, there is this process of cognitive aging that takes place. It's highly dynamic and variable within and between individuals. There is no such thing as everybody ages the same and everybody loses their mind or anybody loses their ability to be able to be salient. That's not what happens. It's very, a lot of things come into this, right? It includes some cognitive domains that may not change, may decline, or may actually improve with aging. So there are people who, as they get older, they actually gain cognitive abilities. So this is extremely valuable for those of you who are thinking that things are going to be in decline as you age. No, not necessarily. A lot of factors play into this, but that is not what we're finding when it comes to cognitive aging. And of course, your book does a great job of kind of highlighting some of this. They fall under the wisdom chapter, but this idea of wisdom is one of those things that is extremely important to embrace, because it is one of the positive sides of aging. Not all clinically defined neurological or psychiatric diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease, does not mean it's inevitable. These things are not things that happens all the time. So not everything that is this way is going to be Alzheimer's, and it's not inevitable, right? This is one of those things to keep in mind. Risk factor to consider, and this is important because this is how they identified it. Health and environmental factors of the lifespan influence cognitive aging, right? How the health and environment. So don't think of it how I live. The environment has an impact on how you are living. So that plays a role in this, right? Modifiable, non-modifiable factors include genetics, culture, education, medical comorbidities, acute illness, physical activity, and other health behaviors. A lot of things play a role in this, right? This is just capturing that part of it, not just your genetics, but your culture, your education, all those things, right? And there is a belief that cognitive aging can be influenced very early on, utero, infancy, childhood. The reality is we're quite not sure about the impact generally, but we believe there is a strong correlation that exists between these. In many ways, what's being captured here is the genetics aspects of it. Cognitive aging, for the assessment, cognitive aging is not easily defined by clear thresholds, so we don't know how to kind of, the best way of doing it, and these 2 points here are probably important, is that if you want to measure someone's cognitive abilities, right, it has to be measured over several points. There is no, oh, I'm going to take this IQ test, and this IQ test is going to give me my cognitive ability, and it's going to show what a genius I am, or what a genius I continue to be at, right? It requires there to be a constant, monitoring in order to determine if there is a decline even happening, right? That's going to be an extremely important way of thinking about these things. There isn't a one test thing kind of way of thinking about when it comes to cognitive aging. As a matter of fact, this is the way it is with most intelligence anyway, so we have to be questionable about that. It has an impact on your daily life, right? Day-to-day functionings, right, such as driving, making financial decisions, healthcare decisions, all these things are extremely important and affect the way in which people live their daily lives. It is extremely important, right? Having experience, environmental support aids, all of those things can be used in order to try to balance out in the same way that a hearing aid helps to support someone who is losing their hearing, right? We need to think about ways in which people can be given a better opportunity to live better lives as they are going through cognitive aging process, to balance out that cognitive aging. So those are those things to consider, right? The challenge of cognitive aging may be more apparent in environments that require individuals to engage in highly technical and fast-paced work. With aging, cognitive aging, one of the things we know, and your book talks about this, is that people who are getting older as they age, they are not as fast and when it comes to some of these fast things. So for example, if you're playing a video game and it's a first-person shooter, you're not going to be that person that takes out the entire group, right? The image of the old guy sitting in front of his PS5 playing off Call of Duty and killing off everybody that's in his way, that's not going to happen, right? There's a slowing that happens. That, however, does not mean that there is no, that there's a decline in a person's cognitive ability, right? That's a whole very different things, and understanding the differences between those things are the things to think about in their study, and the way that they, and this is important, right? This is the cross-cutting themes that they develop, right? Cognitive health should be promoted across the lifespan. Start very early on. So this is why being a health professional and engage in anything where you're dealing with people in a way in which touches their health, you should be thinking about how you engage in promoting cognitive health throughout a person and where they are in their lifespan. Cognition is memory plus more. There's multiple dimensions of cognition. It isn't a one way of thinking about it. There are a lot of things that are playing a role in this. Cognitive function levels vary among individuals throughout their lifespan. Sometimes you're going to be more prepared, sometimes you're not. Remember, psychology plays a significant role in this, right? Someone who is suffering from even a multitude of sadness is going to have a very difficult time processing during those time periods. This is what we're talking about. There are events that happen in people's lives. There are events that happen, and there are sicknesses that happen, right? Including we are at least somewhat aware of there being something connected to, for example, COVID, right? We understand that the COVID virus might have an impact on someone's ability to be able to at least their cognitive ability for the short term. We don't know about, we call it sometimes long-term COVID, but we don't know what long-term is, right? But we know that there is a short-term impact, short-term only because we've only been following for the last several years, of people who suffer from COVID sometimes have some sort of cognition issues, memory loss and things like that, short-term memory, sometimes it's usually affected by that. So these are the kinds of things that we want to pay attention to. But it shows you, right, that it's something that can vary throughout a person's lifespan. Cognition function is affected by multiple factors. Neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your ability of your brain to be able to, shift and change and, grow and move back. Those things, that's extremely important. Neuroplasticity includes parts of genetics, physical activity, traumatic brain injuries, sleep quality, comorbidities, acute illnesses, delirium, medications. All these things are things that can affect your cognitive abilities, and at any point in time, a person can be having these experiences. But for those moment in times, and then recover, and their cognitive ability recover after that, right? Cognitive changes are not signs of neurodegenerative diseases. Just because someone is forgetting something, that does not mean it's tied to Alzheimer's or dementia. There could be many, many different factors affecting it, including, right, something as simple as medication. Most people don't think about the impact that medications can have on a person's cognitive ability, but let's be real. When it says, may cause dizziness, may cause sleepiness, don't operate a vehicle when you're taking this medication, sometimes those, for certain individuals, it could be much more impactful than that. And so we need to think about those things. Cognitive changes, aging can affect daily activities and living and independent living. Understand that. Age affects all organ systems, not just the brain. All the body is being aged. So it's something to take into account, right? And aging can have positive effects on cognition, right? The idea of wisdom, as it's written in your book, but it also means that there are a lot of things that people can do to allow for cognitive growth, right? And that's the part that you want to take away from this, is that it is not something that just happens in a vacuum. It's something that is extremely important. It can spread out throughout a person's lifespan. People who are older are not less capable. That's the key. Are they going to be able to run a quarterback a football team? Probably not. That's not. You're right, because that physical abilities and things like that are things that are going to play a role in that. We're talking about, right, people who can coach a football team. Whether they're really good or not may not have to do with their age. It might just have to do with their overall capabilities. That's the lesson from this. And so this will be the quick one for today. And so thank you so much, and enjoy your week. Do the readings.